The streets of Los Angeles had that heavy late afternoon glow, when the sun spilled gold across cracked sidewalks and the air smelled faintly of exhaust and food trucks. David Beckham liked these walks because they reminded him that life, real life, was still happening all around him, far from stadiums, away from billboards. He was dressed simply in jeans, a plain t-shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low, looking less like an international star and more like any father finishing errands after dropping his children at home. He passed a laundromat when two women's voices cut through the rhythm of the street. Their tone was frustrated, urgent. "I gave them my last $200, one said, shaking her head. "They promised food boxes for the kids, coats for winter. Nothing ever came." The other answered with bitterness. But it was Beckham's charity. His face was on the flyer. If you can't trust him, who can you trust? Beckham froze. His name. His face. His charity? His chest tightened, pulse quickening. He stepped closer, apologetic. "I'm sorry, did you say something about a Beckham charity?" His accent startled them. They didn't recognize him under the cap in the shadows. One woman pulled a folded flyer from her purse. Printed across it in bold red, "Beckham Foundation USA, changing lives one donation at a time." Beneath the headline was his own smiling photo, taken years ago in another campaign. A phone number, bank accounts, all listed as if official. Beckham stared at it, anger rising. Someone had stolen his name, his reputation, and tied it to promises they never intended to keep. "Did you actually meet anyone from this group?" he asked. "No," she replied. "Just some slick guy in a suit. He said Beckham would come to the big event soon. We believed him because it's you." He gave the flyer back gently. "Please don't give them another $1. Not until you're sure." His words were calm, but inside he was burning. That night he sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, searching. The internet confirmed his fears. Social media pages had been created, thousands of followers convinced that Beckham himself had launched a new American charity. Edited videos showed his face beside soup kitchens. Comment sections were full of gratitude from people who believed help was coming. He clenched his jaw, disgusted. He called his assistant Maria. "Find me everything, contacts, addresses, events. But quietly. Don't make noise yet." "You want to handle this personally?" she asked. "Yes," he said, voice steady. "If they're stealing under my name, I'll be the one to stop it." The decision weighed on him. A press release wouldn't cut through lies this deep. These families didn't trust statements, they trusted faces. If he wanted to end this, he would need to step into their world, undercover, and see who dared use his identity. He scribbled 3 words on a pad before him: "Find the truth." He knew then that this was no longer just a matter of reputation. It was a matter of protecting people who had already been let down too many times. The ballroom smelled of cheap perfume and ambition. It was Friday evening, and Beckham walked through the doors of an aging hotel downtown, unrecognizable beneath a thrift store jacket, faded jeans, and a scruffy beard disguise borrowed from Maria's film industry contacts. His baseball cap shaded his eyes. He was no longer the polished figure from television. He was just another man blending into the crowd. Bright banners stretched across the entrance, plastered with his smiling face. Beckham Foundation USA, join us in changing lives. Volunteers in colorful t-shirts handed out pamphlets. Beckham slipped inside with the others, paid a small registration fee, and took a seat among the families and businessmen filling the rows of chairs. On stage stood a tall man in a designer suit. His hair was slicked back, his gold watch glinting beneath the lights. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, arms wide, "today we walk hand in hand with the legend himself, David Beckham." The crowd cheered wildly. Beckham sat stiff, jaw tight, watching his name lifted for lies. The man introduced himself as Richard Cole, the director of the so-called foundation. "I spoke with Mr. Beckham personally," Richard proclaimed. "He is humbled by your trust. Though he cannot be here today, he has sent us to carry his mission forward." Slideshows followed, doctored clips of Beckham spliced into scenes of soup kitchens, smiling children holding boxes. Then came staged testimonies. A woman stepped up, voice shaking in rehearsed gratitude. "Thanks to Beckham Foundation USA, my family received rent assistance." Applause roared. Beckham's stomach turned. Volunteers carried collection boxes through the crowd. Beckham slipped a few bills inside, writing a false name, while his hidden jacket button camera captured every detail, every handshake, every transaction. He saw how organized it was: credit card readers, envelopes, lists of donors. It looked flawless, legitimate, convincing. Curiosity pushed him beyond the main hall. He followed a side corridor marked staff only and found a room where two men counted stacks of cash, laughing. Easy pickings, one said. They really think Beckham's behind this. Beckham recorded quietly from the doorway, heart racing. Hey, what are you doing here? A deep voice barked. He spun to find a bulky security guard glaring at him. I was looking for the restroom, Beckham muttered, shoulders slouched, accent flattened. The guard stared, suspicious, then pointed down the hall. Beckham retreated quickly, adrenaline surging. Too close. Back in the main room, he sat near an older man twisting a baseball cap in his hands. I gave them $300 last week, the man whispered. Half my paycheck. They promised food for my grandkids. Do you think they'll deliver today? Beckham's throat tightened. He wanted to tell him everything, but instead he placed a steady hand on his shoulder. Keep your receipt, Beckham said quietly. Sometimes the truth takes a little time. The event ended with Richard announcing, with your generosity, we have raised over $50,000 today. The room erupted in cheers. Cameras flashed. Richard's eyes swept the crowd and lingered on Beckham a beat too long. The smile he gave was sly, almost knowing. That night Beckham peeled off the disguise at home and looked at his reflection. His own face, stolen and printed on banners, stared back at him in weary silence. He whispered, "They've built this empire on my name, but I'll bring it down." He sent the recordings to Maria with instructions to back them up. It was evidence, but not enough. He needed the irrefutable proof that would make the scam collapse under its own weight, and he was willing to walk deeper into danger to find it. For Beckham, this was no longer about reputation. It was about the man with the baseball cap, the mothers at the laundromat, the kids waiting for food that would never come. This was his match now, and he intended to win it. He woke before dawn to the sound of sprinklers ticking somewhere down the block. The city still blue and half asleep. On the table, a folder of screenshots, photocopies of flyers, a burner phone Maria had sent over with a note. Use this for any contact they give you. Don't lead with your real number. Next to it, a pair of cheap glasses and the thrift store jacket he'd worn to the ballroom. He slid the phone into his pocket, rubbed the sleep from his face, and told himself the same thing he'd told teammates in tunnel lines before finals. Breathe. See the picture. Make the simple play first. By 8 he was parked across the street from a co-working building in Koreatown with a sign in the window that read Community Partnerships Incorporated. The address matched one of the Beckham Foundation USA receipts he'd photographed. Commuters flowed in and out with laptops and cardboard trays of coffee. He waited. At 9:30 a matte black SUV pulled to the curb. Richard Cole stepped out in a slate suit, smiling at nothing, phone to his ear. A guy from the ballroom, one of the cash counters, trailed behind with a leather folio. They disappeared inside. Beckham followed a few minutes later, cap low, beard in place. The lobby smelled like roasted beans and printer toner. He bought a coffee he didn't want and scanned the directory. Suite 504, CPI Events, 5th floor. He pressed the button and rode up with a woman in gym clothes who was scrolling through a feed. When she glanced up, he gave the polite half-smile of any stranger in an elevator. When the doors opened, he let her go first, then drifted down the hallway until he found 504. Frosted glass. A logo that looked like a handshake over a skyline. Voices on the other side, muffled, clipped, hurried. He didn't go in. Not yet. He leaned on the corridor railing by the window and sent Maria a text. They're in 504. Name on the door is CPI Events. Can you run it? 3 dots. Then Shell Company. Registered 3 months ago out of Delaware. Same agent as 2 other community orgs. His coffee went cold fast. He waited long enough to look like he belonged and waited. An intern type brushed past with a stack of name badges. Beckham timed his move, turned, and caught the door just before it latched. Inside, a reception area with a ficus that had given up months ago and a side table of glossy leave-behinds. The receptionist looked up and smiled the automatic smile. "Hi, here for the volunteer coordinators meeting?" Beckham asked, adjusting his glasses. "Name?" "Tom." The first syllable that came. "I was at the hotel fundraiser. Someone told me to stop by if I wanted to help more." He opened his palms, let earnestness do a little work. Said there was a delivery run this weekend. The receptionist checked a list that could have been real or a prop. "We're tight on staff," she said slowly, then brightened. "But if you're willing to help with logistics, Jason can talk to you." Phone to ear. Murmur. Not. "He'll be right out." Jason was 30, maybe, with a fitness influencer smile and a blazer a size too small. He looked Beckham up and down, decided he was harmless, and shook his hand. "Loved your enthusiasm Friday, man. We need men like you. You drive. Yeah. Reliable? As they come. Jason grinned. Come on. He shepherded Beckham down a short hallway, past a glassed-in conference room where Richard paced, gesturing with a pen, and into a back office that smelled faintly of cologne and bills. Metal shelving units held plastic tubs labeled in Sharpie. Receipts, A/V, event kits. Jason popped open a tub marked donation boxes and revealed what Beckham expected to see. Clean, heavy cardboard with printed slot lids, each with a perfectly placed photo of Beckham's face. The precision of it chilled him more than chaos would have. We've got a block party in Boyle Heights tomorrow, Jason said, sliding a box across. You'll run one of the tables. We're testing a new script. He handed over a single page. Bullet points, warm-up lines, the cadence of trust in black and white. Keep it tight, keep it bright. If anyone asks for receipts, send them to the QR code. If anyone asks about deliveries, say phase 2. Keep smiling. And if the press shows? Beckham asked casual. Jason tilted his head. We love community media. Big outlets we route through comms. You won't have to worry about that. He checked his phone, thumb flying. You got Venmo? Zelle? We're pushing digital this time. Yeah, Beckham lied. Jason tossed him a volunteer badge on a lanyard. It read Outreach, Tom. Wear this. Be early. And hair up. Hats down. The brand team is sensitive about optics. He felt the irony as a physical thing. He nodded, pocketed the script, and left the building with the box tucked under his arm like a midfielder carrying boots from the bus. Outside, the sun had burned off the morning haze. He leaned on his car, dialed Maria, and outlined what he'd seen. They're escalating, she said. Block party means volume. Lots of small donors. Harder to track. I'll loop in legal quietly. If you're going to that event, you need eyes. I'll have them. He tapped the button camera, then the burner phone. And Maria, if this gets loud, don't argue me back. We're past polite. In Boyle Heights the next afternoon, paper pennants fluttered over a closed-off street. Food vendors smoked skewers. Kids in superhero shirts chased a balloon that had escaped a wrist and dipped toward power lines. A makeshift stage had been erected beneath a banner that read Neighborhood Unity Festival. Just to the right, a white canopy with the CPI handshake logo was ringed by 3 donation tables like satellites. The boxes were already out, their slots waiting like mouths. He took his place at table B with 2 other volunteers, a college kid with a nose ring and a grandmotherly woman with wrists full of church bracelets. The kid introduced himself as River. The woman patted Beckham's arm and said, "Call me Ms. D." They believed they were doing good. He felt his throat tighten. "Remember the script," River said brightly, and then to the first person who approached, he launched it. "Hi there. Do you know about the Beckham Initiative helping families right here?" Ms. D slid a brochure across the table. Beckham smiled when he was supposed to, nodded when he was supposed to, and every time the word Beckham left someone's lips, a small current moved through the crowd. Recognition, relief, the thought that someone big had noticed them. A man in paint-spattered work boots fished for his wallet. "I grew up watching him," he said to Beckham without looking up. "If he says he's with us, I'm with him." He slid a 20 into the slot. "God bless." "God bless," Beckham echoed, and the compliment felt like a weight he couldn't set down. He kept his camera running. He cataloged faces, amounts, queries. He answered questions with phase 2 and coming soon and hated each syllable. At one point, 2 girls came by with a phone and a selfie request. "We love Beckham," one said, balancing the screen and making a heart with her fingers. He angled his cap lower, smiled with his eyes, and stepped aside as River did the photo op in his place. Mid-afternoon, an SUV rolled to the barricade. Richard stepped out, flanked by 2 new security guys in polo shirts and earpieces. He moved through the festival with the easy air of a man who had done this 100 times. Touched the shoulder, clapped the back, sealed the promise with a look. He hit each table like a politician. When he reached theirs, he put both hands on the canopy support and smiled wide. "How we doing here?" "Great turnout," River said. "People love the story." "Of course they do." Richard's eyes slid to Beckham. He held the gaze a fraction too long. "New face." "Tom," Beckham said, offering his hand. Richard took it too warmly, then squeezed. "Testing." "Tom. The people who show up are the people who matter." He leaned in, voice softer now, meant for Beckham alone. "You show up tomorrow morning, Tom. We have something more for you to do." A slip of paper fell into Beckham's palm as the handshake broke. "Warehouse, Frogtown. 8 sharp." And then, louder for the table, "You're doing God's work." He swept away in a wake of camera flashes. Beckham looked at the paper. An address he didn't recognize. A note, "Bring truck if possible." He texted Maria a photo. She called within seconds. "That's a distribution hub area. Lots of old artist spaces and light industrial. I can't find a lease under CPI, but there are month-to-month sublets. Don't go alone. Send me a car and 2 people you trust to watch entrances," he said. "Stay invisible unless it goes wrong. If it goes wrong, make it very visible very fast." The warehouse sat at the end of a dead-end street whose cracked asphalt had surrendered to weeds in the seams. The door was one of those oversized roll-ups painted the color of resignation. He arrived at 7:50 in a borrowed pickup, cap down, jaw set. A man with a clipboard checked his badge, scanned the truck bed and waved him in. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over a concrete floor marked with old paint lines. Metal racks rose like a forest. Someone had made the effort to stage authenticity. A few pallets of bottled water, a scatter of canned goods, neatly stacked boxes labeled hygiene kits. He recognized the labels from the photo galleries. The same angle. The same cart with the same bent wheel. He walked closer, lifted a lid, and found what he'd found in the first office. Filler. Boxes half-stuffed with paper and a single token item perched on top for the camera. "Tom?" Jason's voice. He jogged over, pumped Beckham's hand, and gestured toward the back. "You're with me today. We've got VIP pickups. Private donors. Very sensitive." They passed an office with a window into the warehouse. Through the glass, Beckham saw Richard and 2 others around a folding table. A money counter machine slid bills into perfect stacks. Beside it, 3 phones, a laptop, a ledger. He slowed. Jason noticed and laughed. "Accounting," he said. "Nothing you need to worry about." A forklift beeped somewhere. A woman in a headset walked by reading off a list of neighborhoods like a host calling tables at a wedding. Beckham drifted when he could, cataloging routes, names, faces, the rhythms of the place. At one point he slid a phone under a stack of clipboards in the office doorway, camera angled up at the table through the glass. He drifted back with a box in his arms as if nothing had changed. 10 minutes later, Richard stepped out with the ledger, and Beckham drifted back again long enough to snag the phone, thumb the screen, and see what he needed. Richard's voice describing optics. Lines like "We do 10 deliveries on camera, that covers 1,000 boxes and split the QR flows. 1 to the shell, 1 to the backup." The money counter chattered in the background like applause. He moved back into the warehouse with steady hands. Jason loaded his arms with 2 of the hygiene kit boxes. "Take these to Bay 3. A church group is filming at 9. Remember, lids stay closed. We open on site. Got it?" He made 3 runs, long enough to map the place in his head. Maria's text came through. "2 of ours are eyes on the north and west doors. Unmarked. We have a friend at local news on standby if you need a camera you don't control." He was about to reply when a shadow fell across him. One of the security men, the bulkier one from the ballroom, stood too close. "Tom, right? That's me. Where'd you say you volunteer?" The tone was casual. The eyes weren't. "With Jason," Beckham said. "Since yesterday." The security man looked him over like a customs officer who'd spotted a lie in a passport. "Take off the hat." Beckham smiled. "Sun's rough on me." "Hat." He lifted it halfway, let the brim hover long enough to give the impression of compliance, and in that half second a forklift clanged on a metal rack at the far end of the warehouse. Heads turned. Miss D, he hadn't even seen her arrive, laughed her big church laugh at something a kid said. The security man's eyes flicked toward the sound, and Beckham slid the cap back down with a shrug. "Happy?" The man grunted, unconvinced but not quite sure why he was unconvinced. "Stay where you're assigned." He walked off. Beckham let out the breath he'd been holding. He texted Maria, "They're twitchy. Might be time to move faster." "Copy," she wrote. "How clean is your proof?" He scrolled to the clip of Richard talking about splits and shells, the money counter singing. He could feel a line in him tighten. Another clip, this one closer. Richard laughing, saying people don't want the truth. They want an angle that feels like truth. Beckham gives them the angle. "Clean," Beckham texted. "But I want the ledger." He timed it. The church group arrived, cheerful, camera out, choir t-shirts under denim jackets. Jason turned into a tour guide. Richard became charm. For 8 minutes the entire warehouse became theater. Beckham slipped sideways, slid into the office, and lifted the ledger from the table the way you lift an opponent's blindside ball. Fast hands, quiet feet, no second touch. He snapped photos page by page. Dates, amounts, shell accounts, donor relations, commissions that would make any honest accountant choke. He put it back. He aligned the pen exactly as it had been. He stepped out and picked up a box as if he had always been carrying it. Then the security man's voice cracked across the concrete. "You." Beckham turned. "Your badge," the man said. "Let me see it." He held it up. The man leaned in, studying the lamination like it hid a secret. The church camera drifted, lens catching the tableau by accident. Richard noticed. Their eyes met across 20 feet in a pane of glass that wasn't there. For a heartbeat, Beckham saw Richard see him. Not Tom, not volunteer, but the man whose face paid for this lie. Then Richard smiled so broadly it looked painful. He clapped once. "Friends," he called, opening his arms to the church group and the volunteers and the air itself. "Isn't it a glorious morning to serve?" The tension broke with nervous laughter. The security man, uncertain now under the optics, stepped back a half step. Beckham exhaled, turned, and loaded the box onto Bay 3. He'd gotten what he needed. More than he'd planned. Enough that the story could no longer be spun as a misunderstanding. Enough that if this went to air, it would go like gasoline. On his way out, Ms. D caught his sleeve. "You coming to the block again Sunday, baby?" He looked at her bracelets, at the hope she wore like a uniform, and said, "If I do, it'll be to make sure you get what you were promised." She patted his hand. "That's all we ever ask." Outside, the sun had climbed to the top of the sky, bleaching the street to bone. He slid into the truck and sent the files to Maria, then to a secure drive, then to a lawyer whose name lived on a card in his wallet for things you hoped you'd never need. His phone rang almost immediately. Maria's voice came bright and tight at once. "This is it," she said. We flipped the switch. Quiet call to a detective I trust. Quiet call to a local anchor who owes me 2 favors. You ready to step out of the shadows? He watched the warehouse door roll down behind him, felt the quiet thud of it like a closing book, and answered, "Yes." He checked his mirrors, pulled into the street, and headed for the stadium downtown. Not for a match. For a mic. For lights he hadn't asked for but would use. For a crowd that deserved the kind of truth you can't edit out in post. He had played enough finals to know when momentum turned. He felt it now, the pitch tilting, the other side heavy-legged and late to tackles. He gripped the wheel and let the city unspool in front of him. Next came daylight, and with it the only thing strong enough to break a lie built on his name. The morning of the reveal arrived with a nervous clarity, the kind Beckham used to feel on the day of a final. The city was alive outside his window, but inside his house it was silent, almost sacred. On the dining table, next to a half-empty cup of coffee, sat a neat pile. The flyers, the hidden camera footage copied onto drives, the ledger photographs printed and bound. Beside them, a neatly folded suit jacket, navy, sharp, understated. Not for disguise this time. For truth. He stood before the mirror adjusting his tie. His reflection was not the weary Tom, who had shuffled through block parties and warehouses. It was David Beckham, father, husband, citizen, the man whose name had been dragged through mud. And today he would not whisper. Today he would say it out loud. The press conference was set at a downtown community center, not a stadium, not a luxury hotel. Beckham had insisted on the venue himself. He wanted the walls scuffed by kids' sneakers, the chairs mismatched from donations, the echo of real lives in the rafters. He wanted the very people who had been tricked to sit in the front row. As he arrived, the scene already buzzed with anticipation. Local media vans crowded the street. Reporters milled about with cameras and notepads. Families from the neighborhoods he had visited sat clustered together, holding hands, faces wary but hopeful. Maria stood by the stage, headset on, directing quietly. She gave Beckham a nod as he entered. When he stepped up to the microphone, the room hushed in an instant. His presence carried weight, not of celebrity, but of someone about to speak from the heart. He looked out at the crowd and saw the laundromat woman, the man with the paint-splattered boots, Ms. D with her bracelets. Their eyes were on him, waiting. He began slowly, voice steady but edged with steel. Many of you have seen my face on flyers. You've been told I started a new foundation here. You've given money because you believed in me, because you trusted me. He paused, letting the silence stretch. That trust was stolen. A murmur rippled through the room. Beckham lifted the folder, opened it, and held up the forged flyers, then the ledger copies. Screens on either side projected the hidden camera footage. Richard laughed, the money counter clattering, the words, "Beckham gives them the angle." Gasps broke out. Some people covered their mouths, others cursed softly. This, Beckham said, gesturing to the screen, is not charity. It is theft. It is manipulation. And it was done using my name, your hope, your generosity. I could not stand by and allow it. He let the footage play, actors giving false testimonies, cash being counted, Richard's voice bragging about shells and splits. By the time the clip ended, the room was buzzing with anger. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras zoomed close. Beckham leaned closer to the microphone, voice lower, more personal. I grew up in a place where trust was everything, where a neighbor's word meant you could sleep at night. I know what it means to be let down. And I promise you now, this ends here. At the back of the room, uniformed police officers moved in quietly. Richard Cole, in a suit and tie as if nothing was wrong, had been arrogant enough to show up, perhaps believing Beckham would negotiate. When the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, a cheer rose from the crowd. Richard's face drained of charm, his smile collapsing into a snarl. He shouted something about lawyers, about misunderstandings, but the evidence already glowed on the screens above him. Beckham watched him led away, then turned back to the people. But I don't want to leave you with anger. I want to leave you with action. For too long, words have been twisted. Let me give you a promise that cannot be twisted. Today, here with you, we are starting something real. He gestured, and Maria brought forward a new banner, rolled out across the stage, the Beckham Community Trust. Its subtitle read, Transparent. Accountable. For you. This is not just my project, Beckham said. It will be yours. Every dollar will be tracked. Every delivery photographed. Community leaders, pastors, teachers, you will hold us accountable. Because this time, it isn't about a face on a flyer. It's about real help reaching real people. The crowd erupted, some clapping, others crying. The man with the paint-splattered boots stood, raising his cap in the air. Ms. D clapped until her bracelets jingled like bells. The laundromat woman mouthed thank you through tears. Reporters pushed forward with questions, but Beckham held up a hand. There will be time for details. For now, just know this, hope is not for sale. And neither is trust. Not in my name. Not in anyone's. When he stepped down, children rushed forward shyly, tugging at his sleeve for photos, for hugs. This time he didn't hide his face. He knelt, smiling, letting the flashes catch him as he was. Not a logo, not a false promise, but a man standing where he belonged. Outside, the city's noise swallowed the moment, but something had shifted. The lie had been broken. The truth had been spoken. And in its place, something better had been planted. Later, in the quiet of his car, Beckham looked out at the neighborhood streets lined with murals and corner stores. He thought of the ledger pages now in police custody, of Richard in a holding cell, of the first real trucks that would soon roll into these blocks carrying supplies that weren't props. He whispered to himself, almost like a vow, this was the hardest match, but we won it together. And as the city lights blinked on, Beckham knew that in America, just as in every place he had played, the game wasn't about the goals he scored. It was about what he left behind.